Hi, I'm Matt, and I've got a question for you. What do you think makes animation unique compared to live action? Is it the story? The action? The realism? Or is it the abstraction? All of these are right answers, and I think one way or another they fit into the criteria for what makes animation unique. But as animation has matured over the years, and especially in anime, there's not a lot of diversity in style, and it's kind of a shame because these images are only a fraction of what's possible with the medium. With that said, I think there's a lot to learn from a director who's been doing animation for a while now, except his style explores the abstract. I'm talking about this guy.
どうも、監督のYuasaです。よろしくお願いします。
For the past 2 decades, Yuasa has been a master of abstraction. Compared to his modern contemporaries, Yuasa's works are on a completely different level. It is an encyclopedia for animating emotions that can be wild or subtle, and it goes to show that there's more to animation than just imitating reality. But what can we learn from animating films figuratively, like the way Yuasa does it? The first thing you should know about Yuasa is that his character designs are all over the place, but this is because of one very important discipline. He always emphasized the character as visually as possible, so if a character likes to dance, then emphasize the legs. Or if a character didn't have any emotion, you could draw a distinctive hole in the character's chest. And you can take this idea beyond symbolism. What if you considered the style itself? This crude design of Senpai's messy hair and square glasses say almost everything about him, that he's both a nerd and a loser. But here, it's not the same for Tsukimoto. Based on how the character is designed, the feeling is opposite. And it's all these nuances that helps us get a quick read of these characters without being told who they are. There's an interesting distinction between Yuasa's character designs and mainstream anime character designs, and it's how the eyes were portrayed. Generally, the reason why the eyes are emphasized in anime is because it exaggerates emotion through facial expression. It becomes the first thing you notice and the first thing you follow when you look in the scene. Yuasa, however, didn't emphasize the eyes. His characters had more proportioned eyes and they usually lacked eyelashes. So on one hand, Yuasa has limited himself with the physicalities of the character. But why does he do this? Because it's precisely this lack of a single emphasis that gives him room to emphasize essentially anything. I'd just like to mention that he didn't invent these images. A lot of these images were inspired by classic Western cartoons such as the ones from Hanna-Barbera or Tex Avery. But the distinction here is while these images were literal, Yuasa's were figurative. What's fun about this approach is that the images are basically interpretive. It expects us as the audience to wonder what these characters were feeling. But one way I consistently saw Yuasa express his characters was through the use of shapes. So for example, if someone was in love, he'd emphasize that by drawing hearts, or he'd do the opposite with a broken one. These were the obvious ones, but he could further distill emotions into geometric shapes. For instance, he used squares to display awkwardness. There were also circles. Circles are more ubiquitous, but generally.
Pretty fun.
And all of these images wouldn't be possible without his third and most fundamental technique. Movement. And I don't just mean the movement of character, I mean the movement of everything, from the blocking of the characters, the imagery, the background, so on. When you exaggerate your character's movements like this, obviously you lose some of the realism, but that isn't the point of animation, nor is it to the Yuasa style. Yuasa believed that you could actually better emphasize the feelings and the emotions because the movements were so unrealistic. The images might not be relatable, but the emotions definitely are. So even when you block out a character's face, we're able to empathize with what the characters are feeling through just their movements. That is good directing. But the movement didn't necessarily have to be just the character. I mentioned earlier how Yuasa didn't like cutting to close-ups, and here's why. You can show indecisiveness, loneliness, or even intimacy, all by manipulating just the background. And finally, let's talk about his editing style. I saved this for last because I think this is the most important technique to his style. It's a huge part to why his emotions were so effective visually. Here's why.
次の映画は思い切って純愛映画をやろうと思う
With any emotion, he begins with a full shot,
運命に結ばれた二人が立場年齢性別を超えて結ばれるラブロマンスだ
to a medium shot,
それはまた変なものになりそうですね。
and then with a full shot. It was pretty simple. When it comes to editing, Yuasa was a minimalist. Every emotion had a definitive beginning, middle, and end. It's the reason why everything feels seamless when you're watching Yuasa. Like, did you notice that hidden cut? This is probably the coolest thing about the Yuasa style of editing. He was always trying to connect two different types of shots seamlessly. But the style of editing does something interesting, and it helps to see where by seeing it done differently, so here's an experiment. I'm going to show you a scene from a movie by a different stylistic director. Watch the cuts and see how you feel. Ready? Let's go. What did you feel? Let's try a different scene directed by Yuasa. Keep an eye on what each cut shows. Ready? Let's go. Did you see the difference? Yuasa was always thinking about how much time he should give to a particular emotion. These were characters, placed in rather unrealistic situations maybe, but behind every character was a very human personality, so unless you took the time to understand them in their loneliest moments, or their most extreme moments, the combination of time and abstraction gives us an impression of these characters that is beyond the image of a single frame. This is in contrast to films where other directors don't understand this innate connection and end up cutting like this, 5 cuts in 7 seconds. Did you feel it? Or did you just see it? If there's one thing you should take from this video, it's that the Yuasa style accentuates one thing above all. Seeing it was never enough. You had to feel it, because nothing makes these characters more alive than actually being alive. Thanks for watching.